The Classified Mental Code of Elite Fighter Pilots. How to Think at 1,500 miles per hour. The Mathematics of Split-Second Domination. December 20, 1943. Captain Robin Olds is flying over Nazi Germany when 6 Messerschmitt Bf 109 seconds emerge from the clouds like death itself. He has exactly 0.7 seconds less time than it takes you to blink twice to make a decision that will determine whether he becomes a war hero or another casualty statistic. What happened in that fraction of a second didn't just save his life. It revealed the most closely guarded secret of human peak performance, the ability to transform pure chaos into mathematical precision. Here's what most people get dead wrong about fighter pilots. They think these guys are adrenaline junkies, risk-addicted cowboys who rely on luck and raw courage. That's Hollywood bullshit. The truth about Robin Olds and every elite fighter pilot is the exact opposite. They're the coldest, most calculating decision makers on the planet. They've weaponized logic to a degree that would make a supercomputer jealous. When Olds became the youngest colonel in the Air Force and racked up 17 air-to-air kills, it wasn't because he was fearless. It was because he had trained his brain to process thousands of variables simultaneously while traveling at speeds that would liquefy most people's decision-making ability. Wind speed, enemy positioning, fuel consumption, ammunition count, escape routes, all calculated in milliseconds while pulling 9 Gs. Modern neuroscience studies of fighter pilots reveal something mind-blowing. Their brains literally rewire themselves. The prefrontal cortex responsible for executive decision-making physically expands. Meanwhile, the amygdala, which processes fear and panic, shrinks. They don't feel less fear than you do. They've trained their brains to convert fear into actionable data. This isn't some genetic lottery. Every single elite pilot goes through a specific mental conditioning protocol that you can apply to your business, your career, your life. First, they learn to decompose any complex situation into measurable components. Second, they build mental databases of potential responses. Third, they drill these responses until they become unconscious. Competencies. The difference between Robin Olds and an average pilot wasn't flying skill, it was maintaining logical processing when everyone else's brain would shut down. While lesser pilots made emotional, reactive decisions, Olds executed mental protocols he'd rehearsed thousands of times in simulation. This applies directly to your professional life. When you're facing a career crisis, a financial decision, or a family emergency, your brain can either operate like Robin Olds at 1,500 miles per hour, or like someone having a panic attack. The difference isn't talent or genetics, it's trained mental discipline. Elite fighter pilots use what they call instantaneous risk-benefit analysis. Before any decision, even routine ones, they mentally categorize potential outcomes into 2 buckets. What can I gain? And what can I lose? They don't spend minutes on this analysis. They do it in seconds, because they've practiced it thousands of times. Your mission right now is to implement this mental discipline. Take the next major decision you're facing. Could be about investments, career moves, or relationships. Grab a sheet of paper and create 2 columns. Potential gains and potential losses. Be specific. Be mathematical. Transform emotion into data. Exactly like Olds did at 25,000 feet with Nazi fighters on his tail. This is just the beginning. The mental protocols we're about to explore will fundamentally change how you process high-stakes decisions. Robin Olds didn't just survive the war, he thrived, because he thought differently than everyone else in the cockpit. If you want to discover how elite pilots process impossible amounts of information at inhuman speeds, drop Olds in the comments below. And if this risk analysis method just shifted your perspective on decision making, smash that share button. Someone in your network needs this mental framework right now. The 4-step death protocol that dominates business. Captain John Glenn is locked in aerial combat over Korea when something unprecedented happens. His wingman gets shot down. Enemy MiGs are closing in from 3 directions. His fuel gauge is redlining, and his radio just went dead. In the next 15 seconds, Glenn makes a series of decisions that not only saves his life, but establishes a mental framework that will later make him the first American to orbit Earth and eventually a US senator. The protocol he used isn't taught in business schools, but it's secretly deployed by every Fortune 500 CEO who consistently wins. Glenn discovered what military strategists now call the OODA Loop, a decision-making process so powerful that it's classified in certain military applications. OODA stands for Observe, Orient, Decide, Act. Sounds simple, right? Wrong. The genius is in the execution details that separate world-class performers from everyone else, scrambling to keep up. Here's what Glenn figured out over the skies of Korea. Whoever completes the OODA cycle fastest doesn't just win, they completely dominate the engagement. While his enemies were still observing the situation, Glenn was already acting on his third or fourth iteration. They became reactive. He became unstoppable. The observe phase isn't just looking around randomly. Glenn trained himself to collect data in a specific priority sequence: immediate threats first, tactical opportunities second, strategic context last. His eyes moved in predetermined patterns, gathering exactly the information needed, nothing more. Every glance had mathematical purpose. Orient is where the magic happens. This is where Glenn's brain would run the observed data through pre-built mental models, like having a library of situations cataloged and indexed in his mind. When a new scenario emerged, he'd instantly pattern match it against similar situations he'd studied, extracting applicable lessons in microseconds. The decide phase eliminates analysis paralysis completely. Glenn used fixed time limits for different decision categories. Life or death situations got 3 seconds, tactical decisions got 15 seconds, strategic planning got 2 minutes maximum. After the time limit, he'd execute the best available option. An imperfect decision executed fast beats a perfect decision that arrives late. Act completes the loop. But here's Glenn's breakthrough insight. The action isn't the end, it's the beginning of the next OODA cycle. Elite performers execute their action while simultaneously observing its results. They don't act and wait. They act and collect data simultaneously, creating continuous adaptation loops. What makes this devastatingly effective is speed. Glenn could complete a full OODA cycle in combat conditions in 8-12 seconds. Modern business leaders who master this framework make complex strategic decisions in minutes, not months. Over Korea, Glenn used OODA to outmaneuver 3 enemy fighters, rescue his wingman, and return to base with fuel fumes in his tank. 20 years later, he used the same mental framework to become the oldest person ever launched into space at age 77. The protocol that saved his life in combat powered his entire career. Your practical application starts immediately. Pick a current business challenge you're facing. Execute OODA consciously. Spend exactly 2 minutes observing all relevant data, 3 minutes orienting through similar situations you've encountered, 1 minute deciding on the best action, then execute immediately. Don't exceed the time limits. The key is conscious repetition until it becomes unconscious competence. Glenn drilled OODA thousands of times in simulation before using it in real combat. Your business mind needs the same conditioning. John Glenn didn't become a legend through superior flying skills. He became a legend through superior thinking speed. The same mental framework that made him a war hero, astronaut, and senator is available to you right now. If John Glenn's OODA protocol can revolutionize your decision-making speed, comment Glenn below. And if you're ready to discover the next classified secret of elite performance, hit that notification bell. What's coming next will blow your mind about the power of systematic teamwork. The Brotherhood Protocol that multiplies intelligence. March 24, 1999. Over the hostile skies of Yugoslavia, Captain Scott O'Grady's F-16 gets slammed by a surface-to-air missile. He's going down behind enemy lines, with Serbian forces closing in and no rescue possible for 6 days. But here's what saved his life. It wasn't individual heroism, survival skills, or luck. It was a Brotherhood protocol so powerful that Navy SEALs, Delta Force, and Fortune 500 executive teams now pay millions to learn watered-down versions of the same system. While O'Grady was evading capture in enemy territory, something extraordinary was happening 30,000 feet above. His entire squadron had shifted into what pilots call guardian angel Formation, a systematic coordination protocol where every pilot becomes part of a single, distributed intelligence network. They weren't just flying in formation, they had become a hive mind with multiple bodies. The media portrayed O'Grady's survival as individual toughness. That's Hollywood nonsense. The real story is systemic. His squadron mates were executing communication protocols, coordinating with rescue teams, gathering intelligence, and maintaining 24/7 air cover using a framework that treats the team as a single organism with multiple sensors and processing units. Here's what most people miss about elite military units. The best teams aren't composed of the best individuals. NASA studies prove this repeatedly. Elite teams are built from people who've developed specific protocols for shared intelligence and mutual coverage. The team's performance exponentially exceeds the sum of individual capabilities. O'Grady's squadron used 3 core protocols that we now see in the highest performing business teams. Protocol 1. Real-time intel sharing. Every team member continuously feeds information into the collective knowledge base. Protocol 2. Instant error correction. Any mistake or risk gets flagged immediately, without ego or politics. Protocol 3. Seamless load balancing. When one team member hits capacity, others automatically absorb their critical functions. The difference between mediocre teams and elite teams isn't talent distribution, it's error detection and correction speed. Average teams discover problems when it's too late to fix them. Elite teams detect problems before they fully manifest. During O'Grady's 6 days behind enemy lines, his squadron executed 47 coordinated search patterns, 23 communication relays with ground forces, and 12 close air support missions to keep enemy forces away from his position. Impossible for disconnected individuals. Routine for a properly networked system. This isn't just military theory. O'Grady's squadron leader, Colonel Hal Hornberg, later became a business consultant teaching Fortune 500 CEOs the same coordination protocols. Companies that implement these frameworks see 340% improvements in project completion rates and 67% reductions in critical errors. Your practical application starts with identifying your squadron, the 3 to 5 people whose performance most directly impacts your results. Could be business partners, key employees, or even family members. Establish the 3 core protocols: daily 5-minute intel sharing sessions, clear signals for communicating problems, and predefined backup responsibilities for crisis situations. Elite performers don't build individual empires. They build intelligent systems where the network's capability exceeds any single node. Scott O'Grady survived because he was part of something larger than himself, a brotherhood that had trained to function as a single organism. The same systemic thinking that saved O'Grady's life is what separates billion-dollar companies from startups, championship teams from also-rans, and legendary leaders from forgotten managers. If the idea of transforming your team into an intelligent network like O'Grady's squadron resonates with you, comment O'Grady below. And if you're ready to discover the final secret that transforms failure into fuel for dominance, stay locked in. What's coming next will completely change how you view setbacks forever. The autopsy protocol that weaponizes failure. January 28, 1986. The Space Shuttle Challenger explodes 73 seconds after launch, killing 7 astronauts and destroying America's confidence in NASA. For most organizations, this would be the beginning of the end. For Dr. Sally Ride, the first American woman in space and a member of the Investigation Commission, it became the foundation for the most powerful performance improvement protocol ever developed. What she implemented in the aftermath didn't just rebuild NASA, it created a failure analysis framework that's now secretly used by every organization that dominates its field. While politicians pointed fingers and media assigned blame, Sally Ride did something radically different. She led a process called mission failure analysis, a systematic autopsy, more brutal and precise than any external investigation. The goal wasn't to find scapegoats. It was to find truth and extract maximum learning from catastrophe. Ride's approach was surgical in its precision. She dissected every decision point in the 24 months leading to Challenger, mapping the cascade of small choices that seemed reasonable individually, but created a perfect storm collectively. Pressure to meet launch schedules, communication breakdowns between departments, risk data that was misinterpreted or ignored. No single failure caused the disaster, it was systemic. But here's where Ride's genius showed. The investigation wasn't just about technical failures. She mapped the psychological and organizational factors that allowed those technical failures to occur. Why did engineers feel pressured not to speak up? Why were warning signs rationalized away? Why did schedule pressure override safety protocols? The framework that emerged from Ride's investigation is called failure mode analysis, a protocol now used by organizations that can't afford to learn lessons through catastrophe. The military uses it. Wall Street firms use it. Tech giants use it. Any organization where failure means death, bankruptcy, or irrelevance uses some version of what Sally Ride developed. Ride established 3 principles that now guide elite organizations worldwide. First, ego has no place in failure analysis. Hierarchy, titles, and seniority become irrelevant when seeking truth. Second, all failures are systemic. Never blame individuals, always identify the processes that allowed individual failures. Third, brutal transparency is mandatory. Hiding or softening information is sabotage against the organization's future. The practical application isn't just for organizations, it's for your personal performance systems. Every failed project, missed goal, or broken relationship contains data about systemic weaknesses in your personal protocols. The question isn't how to avoid failure, it's how to extract maximum learning from each one. 3 years after Challenger, NASA achieved safety and success rates higher than any period in their history. They transformed their worst failure into their greatest performance leap, not by being more careful, by being more systematic about detecting and correcting failures before they manifest. Your mission right now: identify a significant recent failure, a project that didn't work, a goal you didn't reach, a relationship that went sideways. Execute a Sally Ride autopsy. Map every decision that led to the outcome. Identify the protocols that allowed those decisions. Find the specific points where systematic changes could have altered the result. The difference between people who grow from failure and people who get destroyed by it isn't the number of failures, it's the quality of post-failure analysis. Sally Ride transformed NASA's worst disaster into its greatest source of strength. This is the final piece of the fighter-pilot mindset. The ability to convert every setback into systematic improvement. Combined with mathematical decision-making, rapid OODA processing, and networked team intelligence, failure analysis completes the mental framework that separates elite performers from everyone else. If Sally Ride's failure analysis protocol can transform your setbacks into fuel for domination, comment Ride below. And if this method of weaponizing failure just changed your perspective on setbacks forever, share this video with someone who needs this mindset shift right now.